start the two, and here's my agenda. All right, welcome, guys. This is the February 20th edition of the Rockland Zoning Board of Appeals. We're going to be talking about just possible zoning changes that we'd like to see made. You know, things that just don't read right, things that just don't work correctly. Things that need to be updated, because it's supposed to be, the zoning bylaw is supposed to be a living document. It's supposed to change as time goes on. So I would entertain a motion to open the meeting.
So moved.
Okay, I got a motion in the second roll call, because this is all via Zoom, and all participating members are participating via Zoom. So we got a roll call. Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Myself is yes. Mr. Galley.
Yes.
Mr. Baker Jr.
Yes.
Meeting's open, and again, everything's being recorded. Not sure if it's being live streamed. I think it is. If it is, cool. If it's not a big deal. So without further ado, what do you guys think? Did you look at the zoning bylaw? Does everybody have like one thing that they're, Mr. Galley, go for it, sir.
Well, I just tried to go in order, and I had a couple of questions about
Perfect.
the application or the application process.
Yep.
The first thing I wrote down, little thing, on page 2 of the application, it specifies the postage that's required.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, $1.65. I was just curious, where that's rigid. I was just curious if like that should be that rigid, or if it should be something more, I want to say like more worded in the sense of,
Whatever market price is.
yeah, something like that, like something to do so many ounces,
Yep.
by the postal service for first class mail. And then they could say, you could even say at the time, you could write, example, February 2024, $1.65, but as an example, if you even wanted to put an example in parentheses on there.
How's that sound to you? Does that make sense? It makes sense to me, but
It does, but I'm not even gonna put an amount, just whatever certified mail is at the time.
Okay, yeah, so that we'll leave it like that, based on the postal rate of this service.
Mm-hmm.
How about if we put whatever the going prices of postage at the time of the submittal?
Yeah, it'll be, we're gonna be making some other changes to the application too.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll kind of all be incorporated into one, but that's one thing that I'm not even gonna put like an amount, because some of it's certified, some of it requires like certified plus like a forever stamp.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
and it changes anytime.
right.
Yep.
All right, so that just proves that we're all on the same page. Nice, Steve. Good start. What else you got?
All right. Next thing on the application, I'm just curious, for the application, and I don't know what the document was called, but I remember when we were dealing with one single family home that the guy tried to make it into a multifamily home, but he bought the property because it was like, say, just sold to him as a 2-family home, but it wasn't documented with the deed or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay to require a copy of whatever that document is? Is it the deed or whatever it is from the government that says this property at this lot is a 1-family home, a 2-family home, a multifamily home?
That's the field card that I believe ends up being the field card from the assessor's office.
Okay, so could we require for them to produce a copy of the field card?
I don't see that being a problem. If we list it in the required documents to be supplied, right, Deb?
You mean like per applicant?
Yeah, per applicant.
But I'm only saying this should apply to someone trying to do something that's in a multifamily type situation.
Why bother? I hear what you're saying, and I'm gonna admit, if you just blanket it right across, because we have to, and there's a lot of stuff that they have to provide.
Yeah.
There's the abutters list, there's the lien certificate.
Yeah.
If it's official, yeah.
There's a lot of different things that they have to provide. Why not?
Okay, good. No, that makes sense. Part of the reason why I thought of it was, one, because it came up before.
Right.
And I feel like if someone's putting that, if they have to get it before they actually submit their application, they're going to read it and go, uh-oh, I can't do that, or uh-oh, this might be why I can't do that.
Right, so it makes sense that it should be, or it could be,
Yeah.
a part of the list of required documents that has to be supplied. Because Deb, you usually get that anyway, don't you?
I usually pull that in the beginning.
Well, less work that you have to do. Force the applicant to do it.
Well,
Well, I'd rather have it in the beginning.
That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point.
But
But
yeah,
make sure that they make sure, because we can get it no matter what. But make sure that they supply it. That way we can turn around and say, well, didn't you look at the documents you supplied us?
Right.
You know what I mean? As opposed to assuming that they've already looked at it.
Mhm.
yeah, Rob, I
Does that
don't have
make it-
I don't have any trouble at all with the notion that the applicant should provide a copy of the card.
Mhm.
But I also think that we should reach out and get the card from its original source just to verify what we're getting from the applicant.
We can
Is
do it.
accurate.
That's easy.
Yeah. And well, I mean, but then it doesn't reduce the work that Deb has to do by pulling the card to begin with anyway.
True. It's getting the document twice, but redundancy is kind of required in some situations. So if Deb, if you don't have a problem with this, because again, this is all paperwork that either you're gonna have to be supplied, check to make sure that they supply. And then in turn, if you're gonna keep getting it prior to, at least you can have both going back
Right.
and forth.
Yeah, I don't
So,
mind. Yep.
Steve, what else you got, sir?
Well, the question on that, would that be something that we would then get a copy of?
Mhm.
So we, like, as members, with the application or something like that.
I would assume that would be a part of the application, because we get that PDF that's got all the different pages in it.
Okay.
I'm assuming that would be a part of the application.
All right, good. Yeah, that was what I was hoping, that we would see something like that and we would know what property, what we're looking at for the property.
Exactly.
Okay, good.
Exactly.
That was half my motive.
Perfect. What else you got?
Yeah, can we just go back to that one for a second?
Absolutely,
Rob,
sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, just to clarify, Stephen originally proposed that it apply only to situations where a single or a house is being promoted
Mhm.
as a single going to two-family. Would there be a benefit or any detriment to requiring it as part of basically any application?
That's the way I was looking at it. Again, he
Yeah.
did put it up. He did kind of start it off with that one thing in mind. I believe that it should be required for every single applicant, because it's just one piece of documentation that they should be seeing anyway. I mean, typically, a lot of the bigger projects we have, they have an engineer involved. The engineer is the one that's actually putting this together. And again, typically the engineer, when he's doing this kind of thing, and he's looking at, what is allowed and what is not allowed, even if it comes down to a, one family versus two family versus three family, he's gonna pull the field card anyway. He's gonna look at what he's dealing with at that single time. So no matter what, whether it's a homeowner that's doing the application, whether it's an engineer that's doing the application, they're gonna be pulling that regardless. All right, or at least the engineer is gonna be pulling that regardless. You would think the homeowner would, but they may not necessarily. But at least, like you said, if we require it of everybody, we can always turn around and go, well, didn't you look at the field card? You supplied it to us. We only assumed you looked at it. You gave it to us. And if they turn around and say, oh, well, I never looked at it. Oh, well, that's your problem. I ain't saying that, but Deb,
I have a question.
yes.
So what's gonna happen when we have a lot that's in two zones, but only one zone shows up on the field card?
Typically, you always go back to the legal document that determines where and I'm pulling the legal hat out right now. You
So
always
we-
go back to,
So we do that, but you can't expect, I don't think, an applicant to do that.
absolutely. I have to do, because remember, I sit on both sides of the table. I have to do that all the time. All the time. I have to, when I'm doing a plan for something, I'm doing one right now, all right? It's a lot that's in two zones. I have to be able to report that on the plan So the engineer can look at it and go, oh, okay, this, that, the other thing. Oh, it's in the water, it's in the aquifer protection district. It's in this H1 overlay district. It's up to the applicant to either do it or make sure that whoever the professional is that's preparing the plan, you have to make sure that they're doing it. So that's something and in the end, when it comes right down to it, you have to always go back to the legal document, and the legal document is the zoning map, not the
Right.
the field card.
Yeah.
The field card gets it from the zoning map. Steve, yes.
I forget where I read it, but I was reading, I was trying to read through the bylaws, and I thought there was something that it kind of defined when you're in overlapping zones,
Mhm.
what percentage, you're governed by, and where you're located and where your, frontage is and all that kind of thing. So
That we gotta look, yeah.
so I think the field card seems like a good start. And then if they have a problem with the dual zone thing, then I think they've got a question that then all of a sudden that's their thing they have to mention, and maybe they have to, bring that up.
Again, that's something that it is something that the land surveyor or the engineer should be putting on the site plan that's provided to us. It is something that should be on there, because as far as I know, if you look at the requirements for any of the plan, because our site plan requirements are primarily the exact requirements that are required by the planning board for any of their site plans. So it should say, right, I'm pretty sure that it says right in the planning board stuff that one of the requirements is to show the underlying zone. And if that's the case, then the engineer or surveyor should already be doing that. Does it get misinterpreted sometimes? Yep. Do overlay zones or like the aquifer protection zone and stuff like that, does that get missed every once in a while? Yep. So that's something that unfortunately, that's something that technically should be checked. And that in turn kind of throws it to Deb, but I don't know if we should be, I don't know.
Throws it to you.
Throws it to me?
Preliminary review of the plan.
Great. Okay, so he throws it to me. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. No, I'm kidding. I was already doing that anyway.
No,
was
I
already-
know, because I know, that's why I mentioned that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was already doing that anyway. But on
Yeah.
the flip side, I'm not always going to be around. There really should be something that we should look at that. What if I move? What if I move next week? Then who's going to do it?
Well, we could all move next week. I mean,
That's my point. That's why this needs to be a living document. So I don't know how to deal with this, because basically, if it comes down to, in a situation like that, if it comes down to whoever's reviewing the plan, and I'm just doing this because I'm the chairman and because I understand how to read plans, and I understand what the requirements are just by looking at a plan and not by looking at a checklist or anything like that. If I know what needs to be on a plan, it's just that it's easy for me. It's very, very easy for me. But again, I'm not always going to be around. Greg's not always going to be around. What happens in, let's say, let's give it a 10-year mark. Let's give it a 10-year mark. I may not live in town. Greg may not live in town. Probably will be.
I'll
But
be retired.
I see, that's my point. I mean, it's everybody's going to be someplace. Everybody has the possibility of being somewhere else. So
So I guess it would be part of our diligence, whoever it is, would be to verify it against the zoning map.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
getting all this, Steve?
Yeah.
No, Steve, I appreciate you bringing this all up. It's an issue.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
an
I'm gonna get your number when you're in Florida, so don't worry about it.
So I dig this. These are things that need to come up, because some of the reasons that we're in the situation that we're in are because of what was done in the past. So we're trying to correct a lot of the things that were done in the past. Hence
Well,
Deb's
like one other thing
municipal
too.
position. What do you got?
Can we put something in there that all pertinent documents pertaining to the public hearing be delivered to us 10 days prior to the meetings for the board members' review?
Do we not have that? I thought we had that in there. No?
No, because
Okay.
we're getting stuff the day of the meetings
Yeah,
and the
that's
night
right.
of the meetings.
That's right.
So that's me sending them out. What I can do is once they're filed, send them out.
Send them out a notice, a
Or
letter.
just letting you know that they're uploaded to the website once we get the application, because what I've been doing is sending them out with the agenda, which you're right, is not really enough time if you don't get it till Thursday or Friday and the hearing the following Tuesday.
Hmm.
That's why I'm saying if we had it that when they file the application, all the information on the list, because they always have to come in to fill out an application, right?
Well, they have to submit everything at one time or I won't accept the application.
Right. So at that time, they should have all the information that they need.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
Deb's offering the solution that you're asking for to send us the information sooner
When
than
it's
waiting for the
filed.
agenda.
Okay,
Just a couple of suggestions. I think we ought to give ourselves the authority to waive that in certain circumstances at the discretion of the board, just in case there's a situation which, with some justification, can't get the stuff in 10 days out. At least we'll have the opportunity to waive that inappropriate circumstances.
I agree. I definitely agree on that because
Yeah, I think that's,
I think we all have been in the
Yeah.
situation where, yeah, I did, if it like the night of, if
Yeah.
we get the stuff the night of, if the change is so small, or what's
yeah, a minimal change.
there's a de minimis, is that the legal term, Mr. Baker Jr.?
Wow, very
Is that
good.
So if there's if that change is so little, then yeah, then I think that's something that we could probably allow. But if it's something that requires any kind of thought whatsoever, any kind of major thought, then I agree with the 10 business days.
Right.
And then the other thought is what is the consequence, if any, if the document somebody is seeking to present to us doesn't get in under that time limit?
Excommunication.
Well, if it's not admitted, then it can't be used to support their application.
have to continue.
Right, well, so I think there ought to be language in there that the consequence of not submitting it by the deadline is that information will not be considered.
Okay, I like that.
But that has to be made known up front too.
And or banishment to Abington.
Or
Something along those lines.
we could table the public hearing until the board members get to review the new filings or
Yeah. That would still fall under a continuance though, right? Because when you table it, you take it off, you kind of take it, and Mr. Baker Jr., you can correct me if I'm wrong.
You never want to table anything.
Okay.
Because that kicks in a whole different set of procedures that are, well, what they are, I can't say here.
But we could make a
But no, the
motion
same-
to continue the public hearing to
Yeah.
the next meeting so that the board members could review the new
Mhm.
information that came in.
Yep, continue to, and what's he say, to a date and time certain. So it's
Right.
that I think makes sense. So again, we're all on the same page. Love you guys. What else you got, Steve?
On a question on definitions,
Yes.
just a little thing. A
Mhm.
boarding house mentions 3 or more persons, and I'm just wondering, does it have to be 3 or more? I mean, a boarding house, it seems like it's a certain kind of activity, not a number of people. I would think you could have 1 or 2 people in a boarding house.
Let me just let me get there.
That's in definitions, section 415-2.
A dwelling other than a hotel where for compensation by prearrangement for definite periods, lodging and meals are provided for 3 or more persons. What do you think needs to change? Talk to me again.
Well, I'm just saying a boarding house, I would think you could have one person, I don't understand like the 3 or more persons. What if you only have one tenant? I mean, I would think a boarding house is the nature of the activity. I could see it having a maximum, like up to 5 people or something, but I mean, I don't know.
All right, hold on. When it comes to definitions like this, I
Yeah,
look at the state first, and then I
Yeah.
look at other towns that I've had that I do work in. I do work in just about every municipality in Plymouth County. So hold on.
Well, you're doing that. Steve, I think they put the number there because it was one. But then years ago, when I was on the planning board and working with the zoning board too, someone brought up the question that if you leave it at one, I could rent my downstairs to someone and call it a boarding house.
Mhm.
And I think that's where they were getting that,
yeah.
It
The
looks
number.
like, based on just an initial definition search, it looks like it's based on the number, it ends up being based on the number of bedrooms within the house.
Right.
So if your house, let's say if one house had 6 bedrooms and
Yeah.
it's owner occupied, that they have one, they could have 5 other people in there.
Right.
Ours says 3 or more. It really depends on how many bedrooms. So if this says lodging and meals are provided for 3 or more persons, what if your house only has 3 bedrooms?
I could see you mentioning that it's a single dwelling unit.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, an apartment, if you rented them downstairs, if it has a separate dwelling unit with separate kitchen and separate, I mean, a house can always have more than one bathroom, but separate kitchen,
And
That's
technically,
that's
it would be a two-family.
yeah.
right?
that
If
turns
they don't
into-
have, if they don't have separate dwellings, if they have a single kitchen, then I think the
But
number of people would.
The downstairs has a kitchen and a bathroom, bedroom, then and they rent it out, that would be considered a two-family then.
Right, but that would be a dwelling unit, and that would be, because it would be a dwelling unit, one or more rooms designed for occupancy by a family that includes kitchen, sanitary, and living facilities. So it could be, that would be a dwelling unit, but if they don't have separate kitchen and, I don't know what living facilities are, if that's supposed to be anything more than a bedroom,
This doesn't even say that it has to be owner occupied.
Yeah, a boarding house should be owner occupied?
I would think.
I mean, that's our image of a boarding house.
Well, here's the other thing. You remember that Mr. Galley, Mr. Baker Jr., you may not remember this. Mr. Baker Sr. might remember this. You remember what was it? The sober house on East Water. East Water. You remember this? You remember the sober house on East Water Street? Probably like 500 feet, like closer to the sandpaper factory than from BP station. Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
That's a boarding house, but I don't remember if he lives there.
Yes, that was it was past the lights.
But I can imagine a sober living house wouldn't be owner occupied. I can imagine you having an employee working there, like a.
I dig that, and that was part of it, but I feel like they were going on that definition. And when it came right down to it, I think there was the only thing that we could really talk about with the sober house was the parking requirements. Most specifically because the house already existed and he wasn't proposing to do anything to the house. But the only thing that we could really regulate at that point was the number of parking spaces based on the number of bedrooms. And that's where the definition, that's kind of where we were looking at it from a boarding house standpoint. And that was one of the, I think that was one of the things that we were concerned about at that point was, do we need a definition for a sober house, which I don't think that ever came into play.
Tom,
Are
I
there
think I
different?
added
Oh,
that.
sorry.
Well,
No, go
there we
ahead.
go, Deb, I'm going to ladies first, Deb.
Absolutely.
No, I think sober house was added at Tom's recommendation, but just sober house,
Right.
And-
like as needing a definition or something.
Okay,
There's 3 or 4 of them popped up on Ham Street.
Yeah.
And that's when Tom,
If
so
we-
yeah, a definition for sober house should be in there.
Yeah, it's on the notes.
Yeah,
Are
it's
there-
on the
are there
notes,
diff-
and I don't see
are-
it here.
It's on
Are
the
there
notes.
different definitions for a boarding house and an SRO?
Let's find out. SRO,
A rooming house,
okay.
room but no food.
I mean, if we change boarding house to include owner occupied, couldn't that be a question of it? If one exists, then fine, but if it, then it's pre-existing non-conforming and that's fine. But future ones would have to be owner occupied?
It's weird. A rooming house and a boarding house, they kind of have the same definition. A rooming house, also called a multi-tenant house, is a dwelling with multiple rooms rented out individually in which the tenants share kitchen and often bathroom facilities. Rooming houses are often used as housing for low-income people, as rooming houses are the least expensive housing for single units. There's like limited differentiation between the two.
I mean, at least as far as the terminology, boarding versus rooming, boarding seems to connote that the person who's running the show, whether they're the owner or whatever, is actually providing the meals, as opposed to a traditional rooming house where the tenants have access to the kitchen, but have to do their own meal preparation.
All right, what I'm doing right now is definitely right there. I'm going to, the first place that I always start looking is the town of Braintree. That's the first place that I always go, because they have a phenomenal list of definitions. So they usually do. In this case, they do not have a boarding house. So I'm gonna go to rooming house.
According to Google, a rooming house and a boarding house are pretty much the same,
Yeah.
except for a boarding house provides meals.
Right,
So,
and the rooming house doesn't.
yeah.
If that was the case, and maybe I'm overthinking this, but if you're providing food to somebody, does Board of Health have to get in play and get involved?
yes, they do.
I would, so there's I guess that's the difference. Yeah, they don't even have a definition for a rooming house, but that doesn't mean that there's a differentiation in the Board of Health's rules and regs. Maybe we need that.
My other question would be, is there anything in the definition, in our definition of a boarding house or whatever else we use, that says it's, in order to be considered that it has to be done for a commercial purpose?
Really, a dwelling other than a hotel where for compensation,
Okay.
but it doesn't say monetary, but.
Just thinking of Steve's suggestion that it be dropped down to 1.
Mhm.
What if I have an extra bedroom in my house and I let I'll think of a fictional one. I let my brother-in-law stay there, give him meals, and he pays me room and board. Does that mean now I have to be approved to be a boarding house?
No, it's a family member.
But where does it say that in the definition?
It doesn't. And that was challenged years ago.
Yeah, but I thought there was something.
I remember.
I thought like
It was challenged, Bob.
No, I'm not doubting you, but if
And
there
we
is
lost,
that
we
exception, I
lost
think
the foot because it's a family member that you're helping out.
so I could do it for my brother-in-law, but I couldn't do it for my best friend.
Then it would be a
right.
for hire.
Maybe that's something that needs to be codified in the definition. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I hear it. Yeah, I hear it. So when it comes to your best friend and you want him staying over your house for a little while, just ask him, you can ask him for a donation.
if food mysteriously ended up in your refrigerator,
All right, so if any, let's look at what this, has amounted to. Boarding house, rooming house, and sober house. We should have a definition for each. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yes.
I'm not gonna try, I don't wanna try and come up with it now. Deb,
No.
we're just gonna that's something that we have to look at. We have to think about that.
hey,
Steve, what else you got?
what about the Board of Selectmen? Because they issue permits each year for boarding houses and rooming houses.
Mhm.
I don't know if they did have a definition on them. And their rules and regulations on them.
Can you, when you get a chance, can you reach out to Sue and see if she has something like that?
Yeah, I can reach out to Delhi too and see if under Board of Health regs. Yeah,
Nice. All right, what else you got? Mr. Gal, going to Mr. Gal.
All right. I only got, by the way, 1, 2, 3 more questions.
Perfect.
All right, that's all I got. And I can't pull it up on my computer right now. But in section 415-7.
Hold on, I can get there. I've already got it up.
All right.
415-7, schedule of uses, permitted in any district.
Yeah, B1, agriculture. I got a question about that.
B1, hold on,
Yeah.
be patient, B1.
All right. It says agriculture, horticulture, floriculture, uses of more than 5 acres in size. I'm just curious.
Hold on, did you have the rest of it? Is it, again, it's B15, it's
like I said,
415-13.
415-7.
415 hold on, directly under 7.
Yeah.
Okay. The following schedule delineates permitted principal and accessory uses for each zoning district classification. The schedule also includes uses which require the issuance of a special permit by either the zoning board of appeals or planning board before establishment in a particular zoning district. The following uses, although not specifically listed in the following schedule, are permitted in any district. Now, again, I'm going to start reading just like you were. Agricultural, horticultural, or floricultural uses of more than 5 acres in size. Land or structures for religious purposes as described in Master General Law 40A, Section 3. Land or structures within this category are subject to bulk, height, yard sizes, lot areas, setbacks, design criteria, but not, it's design criteria. That we knew. It's design criteria, but it's not whether they can or can't go there. Like you can put a church in an industrial zone.
But number 1,
Yes.
I'm just curious. Agricultural, like I said, uses of more than 5 acres in size. Does that mean they need a special permit if it's more than 5 acres?
Nope.
But they don't if it's less?
Yeah, it sounds like if it's less, most specifically if they're doing it for profit.
Okay. All right. So okay, so please forgive me. Could you tell me again?
Mhm.
The 5 acres, more than 5 acres in size. What that means? They
That's
can
a
or
farm.
can't. What's that?
That's basically, it's a farm.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, this usually, this is one of those right to farm situations.
Yeah.
And it's basically, you can have a farm 5 acres or greater in any zone. It doesn't matter where it is.
Okay.
Anything less than that, it sounds like anything less than that, that's the kicker. Anything less than that, you're asking for a dimensional variance.
Okay. So you have smaller. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. Thank you. Because I was curious about that. All right. Less than that, you do need to do something more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
See, I have like 13,000 square feet. I'm gonna knock down my house and I'm gonna make a pumpkin farm.
Okay.
I need a variance to do that, but it's not gonna happen. But I think, yeah, that's the way that I would see it, and I think that's the way the rest of the towns see it.
Okay.
So, what else you got?
All right. section 415-21-21.2.
Hold on, getting there.
And it goes further.
Hold on, let me just back up here. 415-21.2 downtown Rockland revitalization overlay district. The D-Rock.
Going to section H2A.
We see going fast. G, you said H?
Yep, H is in Henry.
Yep.
I'm just trying to scroll it on my phone.
And then which one?
I had it on my computer and I can't freaking pull it up.
Okay.
So
H starts out as parking requirements.
yeah, it confused me. Because it says trying to get there so I could read it. And let's get there. Give me an hour. I'll be there. Well, it says you have to have, something parking, and it goes or on street parking. I want to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness gracious. Okay, I'm at G. I'm almost there. Like I said, I had it on my computer, but I can't pull it up at the same time as this meeting. All right, section 2, number of parking spaces.
Okay.
And it goes, it has to do with the minimum, so section 8, unless otherwise approved by the PAA, the following minimum number of off-street parking spaces shall be provided by use. And it goes either in surface parking, within garages, or other structures, or on street.
Yep.
So I don't understand how you can provide a minimum number of off-street parking by providing on-street parking. I feel like that's contradictory.
There is a little bit of a contradiction there, but I'm going to tell you right now, you're never going to have to worry about it. You want to know why?
Because you can't park on 100?
Because this doesn't come to us. The D-Rod stuff, that's a 40R. That comes to planning and planning only. So we'll never see this.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that it doesn't make sense, or it does make sense. I'm not saying anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this from a we'll never have to, it'll never come to us.
Okay.
So we'll never have to make a determination on it. If the planning board finds it weird, they'll have to deal with it. And in the grand scheme of things, they're the only ones that are really ever going to look at this.
Yeah.
We're never going to have to worry about this until we become the permit granting authority.
Yeah.
We're never going to have to worry about it. I hear you. I hate taking this stance, but it's useless to even try because we don't have to worry about it. We can't, we can't administer anything about it. We can't grant relief from it. We can't do anything with it. But we can point that out. Deb, what I would say is if we had a document that we pointed out to, let's say, Allison, and say, look, this doesn't make sense. Can you kind of look at this and maybe, talk to the planning board and see if they like it? We saw it as kind of confusing.
Okay.
How's that work, Steve?
Thank you. That's what I was hoping. It
Rock and roll.
Okay.
What else you got?
This is my last thing I'm going to bother you with.
It's about damn time, sir.
Yeah. So it's the same area. 415-21.2 H, section 6. And I'm just curious.
Waivers cannot be granted using criteria 2 and 3 above in combination.
So when I read 2 and 3, I felt like they weren't really related or overlapping. So I didn't know if that should have been B and C instead of 2 and 3.
I'd like to see what the definition. Let me see. Additional visitor parking appropriate to the design layout existing. Shared parking at the discretion of the PAA. What's PAA stand for? I'm thinking permit granting authority, but
I
don't know what the A is.
I planning. Son of a gun. I remembered it yesterday.
Deb, can you ask Allison what that stands for?
Mm-hmm.
PAA,
Some more. Make her do some work. Yeah, what's PAA stand for?
Plan Approval Authority.
Plan approved, then that's the planning board. All right, so then forget it, we got it. So again, where were you? You were F, you were H, you said?
H6. It just confused me what 2 and 3, because I really
Okay.
felt like they didn't overlap.
Sharing use may be made of required parking spaces by intermittent use. Okay, so first I have to look at the definition of shared parking. Shared parking is going to be, the business is only open from 8 to 5. So their parking is only going to be required from 8 till 5. So that's one business. Let's say use. I'm not even gonna say, business. One use, they're only open from 8 till 5, so they only need their parking spaces from 8 until 5. The next use, they're looking at, let's say, 5 to 9. So those same parking spaces are gonna be used for a different use, requiring its specific number of parking spaces at a different time than the other one is. So that's shared parking. And so shared parking is there.
Rob, the credit union's a good example too.
There you go.
That parking lot on School Street,
The following number of the offset. So number 2 is the required number of parking spaces. Number 3 talks about shared parking. The required spaces within 400 feet of the actual travel distance. So again, shared parking is working with somebody else's offsite parking, because the required spaces shall be within 400 feet of an actual travel distance of the main entrance to the principal buildings serviced by the shared parking. The same thing that we were talking to Barry about with the banner. Remember the banner had that, he was going around
Right.
looking to see if he could get shared parking from people. Same kind of concept. Now that I know that, waivers cannot be granted using criteria 2 and 3 in combination. So you either have to have the correct number of what it looks like is you either have to have the correct number of spaces on the lot,
or you can use one, 2
you
or
can use
3,
shared
but you
parking,
can't use both.
but you can't do both. That doesn't
Right.
make sense.
Yep,
That-
no,
that-
yeah, it does. Because you could use share parking, or you could use off-site parking.
Yeah, but if you need to make your parking count and you're using the shared parking, then that goes against actually having parking on site. Because if you had all your parking on site, you wouldn't, or in front of the building, or this, that, the other thing. If you had all your parking in and around the building that you're utilizing, you would need shared parking. So I don't know if this is, I don't know where a waiver would be necessary. Waivers cannot be granted using criteria 2 and 3 above in combination. I don't think you would need, if you have the number of spaces that you need on site in front of the building based on number 2, you wouldn't need number 3.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right, but if you didn't have enough for 2, you'd have to use 3.
Right.
What
But you
is,
can't combine 2 and 3 together to make up your parking. You can use one or the other.
so is 2 shared and 3 offsite?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
so right, like Bob said, you can't have essentially no parking on your location and making up 100% of your parking between shared parking across the street and offsite in a lot you own down the street.
Okay, so let's just, I wanna have basic numbers here. If the whole thing required 20 spaces, let's say 20 spaces. I either need 20 spaces in and around, or I gotta get 20 spaces off-site. I can't have 10 and 10.
Right.
Is that what we're saying?
Well, you can't have 10 shared and 10 off-site. You've got to have 10 on-site and 10 shared, or 10 on-site and 10 off-site.
You can't combine the two and three together to get your parking requirement.
I understand the words. I'm still trying to wrap my head around why
It is
you would need a
confusing.
waiver from either or. You know, why would you need a waiver?
They could come and say, well, I only have 5 spaces in the shared and 5 spaces in the other's place, plus my other 10 that I have that are legal for me.
Wait, so do that again.
So I
Let's
need
say the number is
Yes.
20,
20. He
Yep.
has 10 on his property.
10 on the property and in front of and on the street in front of the building.
Right.
Okay, so you got
Now
10
he's
there.
gonna use 5 shared in this lot, and he wants 5 over in this lot to make up his 20. He can't combine those two together to get his number, unless he asks for a waiver of the two.
Hold on. Let me just let. Shall be executed by all parties concerned. Prove that the community such a thing shall specify the location of all spaces to be jointly used. Number of such spaces, the hours, and to do such agreement shall be recorded. The County Registry may prescribe safeguards and conditions as it shall warrant appropriate. Deb, can you make a note to ask Galvin for clarification on that?
Ask Galvin.
I'm still having a problem with that. I hear what you're saying, but what you're saying is that they can't have 2 locations of shared parking, which I don't see that in.
Without a waiver.
I don't see that in it. It's at the discretion of maybe by community use established. It doesn't say that you can't have multiple places, because that's something that Bill Barry was looking at. He was gonna try and do it at multiple locations. So it doesn't say that you can't do that. So if it's okay with everybody, I'd like to default to what Galvin says on this and see if we can get some kind of clarification from him.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, you're causing enough problems. You got anything else?
No, I'm done. I'm gonna let everyone relax now. Sorry about that.
That's good.
Not a problem. Mr. Baker Senior, talk to me. I know you got stuff.
The definition on the Board of Health, microblading, Botox tattoos.
Hold on. Is that under, that's Board of Health?
Yeah, that's what it says in the paper here.
All right, hold on. Index.
It was,
No, hold
where do they want to put it?
on. Rockland. Let's see, there's the charter, there's the boards, legislation, zoning.
Under the tattoo thing, they want to add tattoo parlors to the center of town. And the Botox and microblading.
All right, hold on. Board of regulations. There we go. Okay. That's not what I want. I want this one. All right, now I'm looking at their hours, duties, what else if they need to do, that's not what I'm looking at. They want their regulations. All right, so what, and again, from a us perspective, they want to add something. It sounds like they want to add something.
They want to add tattoo parlors to the overlay district up in the center of town.
Okay,
And I was the one back years ago when they brought the tattoo parlor bylaw,
okay,
because if you remember years ago, Weymouth got into a big controversy because they didn't have any bylaw for tattoo parlors. And they were dropping them in Weymouth from a helicopter everywhere.
okay,
I got on this and we put them in mostly in the industrial zones. And we put in that they couldn't be so close to a church,
mm-hmm,
school, daycare centers, parks, any recreation areas.
and you're saying that's strictly just our zoning regs. Because I'm trying to find their tattoo regs. I'm trying to find any regs.
It's under us. It comes under
Definitely under us, but I know that the Board of Health also has their own, what was the application? Okay, here it is.
because we also put the adult bookstores in there too, and video stores,
Yeah.
and with the tattoos.
So there's that. I gotta talk to her about this. Okay, so there's that. So again, when it comes right down to it, you're looking at, where do we allow them right now?
Industrial zones,
Well, all of them?
up by your house. And the other down with the marijuana joints.
So under the H2, or under the H1, and that's under I2.
Well,
I just want to pull it up so I can see it. Accessory use.
I1, I2.
And reviewing, manufacturing, there it is. Okay. Tattoo and body piercing parlor, provided that parlors are licensed by the applicant state and or licensing. Further, that no such parlor shall display any photographs or tattoo. The application for special permit shall be subject to the performance standards of Article 10 of this bylaw. What the hell is Article 10? Article 10, performance standards with exception of single environmental general performance standards. Who is this from? I don't know what that is.
Well,
I need to talk to her about that. I need to talk to Delshon about that anyway. But on the flip side of that comment, talk to me. Why can't we have tattoo parlors? Why can't we have tattoo parlors? I'm all for it.
I'm all for it too.
Perfect. Done. Next.
But in a zone where it's appropriate.
But why couldn't it be appropriate uptown?
Because you have 5 different schools now getting out up there.
Okay.
You have a church at one end of Union Street, you have a church in the middle, you have a church by the school, you have a church down the other end.
Yep.
You have a daycare center up
Yep.
in the center of town.
Okay.
When we did this, and this took us a year and a half going over this bylaw.
Mhm.
And a lot of people in town said they didn't care where they put them as long as they weren't up on the Rockland Center. They did not want them up in the Rockland Center or near the schools or churches or anything.
How long ago was this?
25 years.
Yikes.
I think the demographic of people who get tattoos now are substantially different than they were back
It
then.
is.
I
Mr.
mean,
Baker Jr., thank you.
Yeah.
First responders,
Oh,
nurses,
I'm not against
teachers.
tattooing people if they want to get them, but
But just the notion of equating tattoo parlors with porn stores is just a little troubling.
I hear and I hear where Mr. Baker Sr. is coming from. He's warning us that that's what happened 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I think in the grand scheme of things, yeah, we need to rethink this. This is why I say living document. Things change, you know, and I think we need to rethink this a little bit. The stereotype has changed. Steve is even raising his hand. He wants to get one. I know.
I am not a tattoo person, okay? But
You will be.
all right, I'm boring. I'm not fun, but I believe they could be anywhere we put hairdressers.
See, and that's what I think that's what Deb's talking about, because we had, it's that microblading.
Microblading,
Yeah,
which is permanent. Yeah, it's considered a
so
tattoo.
it's not just the microblading, there is like specific tattooing of, there's all kinds of tattooing. There's lip tattooing. I guess you can have permanent lipstick now, right?
Yeah.
I'm
And
going
the salons are asking to do that because a lot of them do that.
right.
And
That's
There
why I think Sally put this in.
yeah,
Well, that end, there is a new push for tattooing. I would like to see this added into,
Maybe we can put them in the sandpaper factory.
I want to, you say that, I want to, because one of the things that I want to look at is, you know how we do you know how the town does a 1-day liquor license?
Right.
I want to do a 1-day tattoo license. Have tattoo, because from there, what that does is tattoo conventions, which brings people to town, which brings business to town. So I'm working with Delshon on that to see how to make this happen. Because Deb, you remember what's his face behind Luca's, the hotel guy? He wanted to try and figure out how to bring more business to his property.
yeah.
I could put on a tattoo convention, every other month.
Now I got a question.
Yeah, you can be first in line for the tattoo, Steve.
Again, I'm not getting a tattoo, but if we say we allow tattoo parlors up and down Union Street,
Yep.
like in the district, and you want to have a convention, would you have to spell out now where you could have a convention? Could it just be at a hotel, or does it
Nope,
have
and
a certain place?
and I'll tell you why. Because you can get a 1-day liquor license in a residential zone.
Okay.
Hearts of Park.
So if you're doing a convention, you're going to want to do it where you can actually put the suppliers and the customers and the whole event anyway. So a 1-day or a 2-day.
It really did, and I think this is why I was looking for the Board of Health things, because I'm glad you brought this up, Bob. Deli said that one of the things is that they would have to comply with the tattoo requirements, the tattoo bylaw requirements when it came to sterilization, this, that, the other thing, which was strictly a Board of Health situation. I've never seen that, and I don't know where that document is. So if I could see that, that could help me with the 1-day tattoo license. But
Right.
to get
Bob, I think they went by what the state Board of Health regulations were.
The only thing I was able to pull up was the application, and the application really didn't give much.
Right.
Everybody else seems to already have something. Yeah, all other.
We
all
also
other-
put in the body piercing and all that stuff too.
Yeah.
With them,
Yep. Hold on. Yes. I'm gonna just look at one more thing.
But I think they were trying to get it so that they could put it up in that new MBTA district.
Yep.
The board.
No, that's the big thing. They want to get it in the center of town. But I think that if it came down to a zoning perspective, you don't want 5 next to each other. You don't want to, you'd end up putting like no more than like 300 feet between, or so, you know what I mean? Or something along those lines.
Right. Could we put in, like we did with the marijuana joints? Limit the number of tattoo parlors in that district, the overlay district?
We never put a number on it. I think that it was the selectmen that decided that no more than 4.
Right.
So if the selectmen were to come around and say no more than, say like no more than, what, 10 in the town? How many liquor stores do we have?
There aren't any in the town now.
Liquor stores?
Hmm? Liquor
No, how
stores?
many, like how many liquor stores are in town?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 6 regular liquor stores and 2 convenience stores, 3 convenience stores that sell, 4 that sell beer and wine.
So there's 10 establishments that you can go in and purchase an alcoholic beverage to take home
Till 11 o'clock at night,
till 11 o'clock at night.
even on Sundays.
Well, then, again, that the number of the number of tattoo parlors and body piercing places, because usually they're in the same place. Body piercing and tattooing are the same, are within the same
Right.
establishment.
Right.
We could see if the board, if the select board likes the idea of allowing a tattoo and body piercing establishment in other sections other than the I2 or H1 zone. I would suggest asking them if they wanted to limit the number. I don't think put it this way, I don't think the town needs more than, let's say, 5. But I'm just throwing a number out there, all right? Because on along the lines of that, how many Chinese food places do we really need in town? How many House of Pizzas do we really need? You hear what I'm saying?
How many banks?
Well, banks, different story. Banks to me follow along churches. How many churches do you need in town? All right. So banks and churches, those are kind of along the same lines, but pizza joints, Chinese food, liquor stores.
What I ate.
How many do you really need? You know what I mean? How many do you really need of each? When it comes to tattoo parlors, do you need more than I'm going to just say a number, 5. Do you need more than 5? Not really. Because they're all over the place to begin with. Abington has at least 3. Bridgewater has a couple. My girl's in Peabody. I go to Peabody because I like her. But I mean, it is something that I think that needs to change. I agree with that. I wouldn't mind allowing that. I wouldn't mind it. And the only thing that we'd have to do is put that in as a allowable by special permit in the B1,
Yes.
B2. That's it.
What's
Well-
what's the general zoning of the MBTA adjacent community that we were talking about? Like, if they would be there, what's that general zoning? What's that equivalent to?
That's
Industrial.
literally only going to be over in the H1 zoning.
Okay, that would be H1 zoning.
Yeah, the H1, I2, H1. I've only seen a map. I know roughly where. Hold on. I have this up. Where the hell is it? Right there.
Gonna be off of Commerce Road.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd have to look at it to be specific, but it's
PK's
definitely going to be.
Area in there.
Yeah, it's Commerce Road. It's to the right of it's to the east of Commerce Road.
Left-hand side going in Commerce Road.
What'd you say?
It's on the left-hand side going into Commerce Road.
I thought it was also on the east on the right hand
It's on
side.
the other side too, yeah.
What,
All
All
right.
the way- It goes all the way up to the highway.
what
It's
gen-
literally it's all in an H1 zone, which is an I2 underlying zone.
but what commercial enterprises could be there? I mean, to service the local residences.
Anything.
What
Anything
George
from
said,
a supermarket to a theater, a dance hall,
This is the MBTA thing.
Yeah,
The MBTA throws a whole new list of uses. Right,
Right.
Deb?
Yep.
Yes, but I thought that it was gonna be a separate zone onto itself, not an
No.
overlay.
It's an overlay.
I
think
don't,
so.
well, you'd have to, that you can ask Allison on that tomorrow, right? Okay,
Mhm.
just ask her if it's going to be its own zone or if
Pretty
it's an
sure it is,
overlay
but
zone.
okay,
If it is going to be its own zone, it
Yep.
throws a whole different, level of it, a whole different level, because that's almost creating a small cell field. All right, you're
Right.
creating small, like its own small little development up there
Right.
with air, with a whole bunch of different things. Houses can be right on top of each other.
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
travelways throughout the whole thing is literally probably never going to be approved, accepted roadways. It's all going to be like,
correct.
Now, they were talking about that. I asked that question. And they said they probably would be looking to approve the main roads, not the alleyways behind the buildings.
whatever it turns into, it's still only going to be, it's going to end up being and I don't want to call it its own town, but it's literally going to be unto its own self. So yeah, we could throw it, you could definitely throw the tattoo parlors up in there. You definitely could, and it would be the same as it would be the same as what it is right now, because that's where they're allowed right now, number one. Number two, they're already talking, as far as I know, she's already talking about putting it into this MBTA zone. I said I'm not saying that they should show up in residential homes or anything like that, but
No.
why not throw them in the business zones too?
yeah, home occupation.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for parallel zoning. I mean, I think they should be allowed in. I think they could be allowed in the like on Union Street or something, and Market Street.
Yeah, but you're not going to put 12. You know what I
No.
mean? You wouldn't want to have more than like two, maybe three tops.
They could come up with a limit per town. They could say, all right, we're going to allow 5, we're going to allow 10. We could throw, you always say this is a suggestion. We could throw out the suggestion. But
Exactly.
I think,
But are there any other kinds of business where the town sets a numerical limit on how many will be allowed?
No,
I was
I
going
don't
to say,
think
no,
so.
I've never heard of it. I've never heard of it.
So how can we do it for one particular business?
We don't. We let the selectmen do it.
Well, I guess a better way of putting it, how can it be
I mean, are we
established for one particular?
The selectmen.
becoming a tattoo parlor?
Say again?
I don't think you'd see more than 5 tattoo parlors coming to one town anyway.
That's my point. Steve, you were saying something. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I said, are we worried about every other open storefront becoming a tattoo parlor? Like you just said, we don't need to worry about a limit if the market won't support, an excessive number of tattoo parlors. So
You're never gonna see it. You're never gonna see two tattoo parlors right next door to each other, like
Yeah.
two individuals. You'll never see that. This is not, trying to think, have I ever seen two tattoo parlors next to each other?
No,
Never.
Are we still worried about? I mean, well, I know this. You said it was 25 years ago. I mean, we could always. I wouldn't worry about making them within so many feet of a school or a church, and then let the selectmen or the planning board or whoever decide that they get public feedback on where they want to put them.
I say again, allow them in the business zones,
I
allow
agree.
them in the business zones. When it comes to being, away from specific things. I mean, so you don't put them near Taunton, you don't put them near Taunton Ave. You don't put them near Reed Street. What's to say they can't go they can't go up the top of what the hell street is that? top of, of the top of Reed at Union and Reed, or Union and Belmont, or something like that. That's far enough away from the schools. I'm not worried about the churches, because I'll be quite honest. I've seen priests with tattoos. I'm not worried about the church.
Sure.
I'm not worried about, I'm not worried about, it in the least. We can look at our own professionals within this town, and we can look at their sleeves. You can look at both fire and police. And these are rock solid guys. They're more tattooed than I am. So yeah, I think we should at least present it and say, look, we want to, as a board, we're looking at it thinking that, yeah, it would be nice to
Bring
change the.
another business uptown besides. It'd be nice to bring another business uptown, but I mean, they could even go down by the custom glass.
That's my point. They can go down there. They could go in they could go in what's the thing with Luke's Liquors? There's that one space in Luke's Liquors that wasn't, I think it's next
Right.
to the FinFen thing. They can't keep anybody in there, and they haven't had anybody in there since Papagino's.
No.
So, it's something. Yes, Deb?
So what about like microblading? If that's considered tattooing,
Mm-hmm.
but it would be done like in a salon.
Exactly.
But I mean, would you count that as a tattoo parlor?
No, but we could probably look at different definitions of tattooing. That would be like the microblading and all that stuff. Isn't that
Okay.
permanent? Wouldn't that be like permanent makeup?
Probably.
I think that's, in talking to Delshon at one point, I think that's what she'd called it. And that would be my suggestion, that come up with a couple different definitions when it comes to permanent makeup versus tattooing, versus body piercing versus microblading.
I'm just picturing this one-stop shop with hair, nails, tattooing, and piercing, and it would be pretty awesome.
Steve,
Yeah.
I like your thinking here, man. I like your thinking. We're all good with the second this
That's why
gets
it's just a sandpaper factory with the elevator. You just
we
go
could
up
do it. We could
down,
one
up, down,
on every floor. I'm telling you, once this gets all passed, all of us we're getting ZBA tattoos. I swear to God. ZBA tattoos, just like they do in the Marines. I don't have a problem with it. I don't think anybody else I don't think anybody and any of the rest of us have a problem with it. So without putting any more real thought into this, it's literally just, we would like to see that as a use that requires a special permit,
special permit. Right.
it get added to the business zones.
Right.
Another
last-
question.
Go ahead, Deb.
So
Go ahead.
would you put like a limit on the total number of tattoo parlors in town, or only allowed in other zones?
I would leave it up for the selectmen.
Just like the number of marijuana establishments.
But But can you limit it if it's a use allowed by right?
You can, if there's only a certain number of licenses.
Okay,
You could almost put that in the Board of Health's,
okay.
on the Board of Health.
Okay.
The same with liquor license, that you can
Right.
only have so many per number of
Right.
people living in the towns.
Right. So
Okay.
that would work. So again, I'd want to see that I think all of us would like to see that in none of the residential zones
Right.
as a use by special permit. None of the residential, not in the RSH, so not in the senior housing. I'd like to see it in B1.
That's
Yep.
kind of not right.
A lot of the buildings uptown have residential on top.
Yeah, but if they're in a B1, B2.
That's right, yeah. So it wouldn't be a
So-
mixed use.
It would, yeah, it would end up being mixed use anyway. So B1,
It would only be allowed in the commercial portion anyway, because the upper floors are the residential and the ground floor is business.
there we go.
Right.
B2, yeah, B1, B2, I1, I2, I3, I4, H1, and that's it.
In the MBTA one.
And the MBTA one, which I think she's already got in there. I'm pretty sure she's already got that in there. So other than that, everything else is an overlay zone and I don't care.
Right.
Yeah, so I'd like to see the, again, tattoo parlors, body piercing, yeah, tattoo parlors, body piercing, like to see that allowable in all zones other than residential. And then we would have to, I would suggest, and I think we already all talked about this, we need better definitions for tattooing versus permanent makeup, and then microblading versus piercing. This one, here's where I'm gonna get a little weird. You guys ever heard of branding?
I'm
That's a
not,
thing. That's a thing.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of that shit.
No.
All right, that's a thing with people now. Branding.
As in like the Old West with the thing and the.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. I don't know if I like that or not. Body modification. So that opens up a weird door.
Microblading. Could they,
That's not microblading.
but could someone come in and say it? Fight you in court over it, though.
If we came up with our own definition, let's see, microblading, microblading, right there.
branding sounds like mutilation as to alteration.
That's the problem. And that's a thing now. All right,
Yeah.
it's awful. Okay, no, come on, I want a definition. I don't want to make an appointment. Damn it, I want to know, I want a definition. I-O-N.
Well, while you're looking that up,
Microblading. Here we go. Microblading is a semi-permanent technique for enhancing the appearance of eyebrows in which pigment is scratched into the skin in fine, short strokes resembling hair using a hand tool with a blade formed of tiny needles. So that is along the lines, but yeah, microblading. Okay, microblading is a tattooing technique which uses a small handheld tool made of several tiny needles to add semi-permanent pigment to the skin.
there's the point,
Tattooing.
semi-permanent.
Yeah, that's tattooing. Okay, so that
Brandon never comes off.
no, see, that's my point. That's my
Right.
point. So
Right.
if that ever becomes an issue, I say we keep that out of the definition. Keep that, absolutely, don't even talk about
Right.
it. So if it comes down to it,
It's not permitted use in the town of Rockland.
thank you. Thank you. So this is, I only bring it up because I know it exists, and I just don't ever want to see somebody come to us saying, hey, can I get a permit to do this? I don't like that. So, all right, so there's that. What, Mr. Baker Senior, what else you got? Anything?
Use variance.
Gone. Anybody else have any?
Oh, quick rewind on the branding.
Yeah,
Can we add something like, say, branding and defining it, saying,
don't even talk about it.
is there any
Don't even talk about it. If we don't talk about it in any way, shape, or form, it's
Okay.
not allowed.
Right.
Okay.
If we talk about it, it opens the door, and I don't want to open the door at all. I just want you guys to know that it is a thing. And if people start talking about it, then, if we open the door, then the door, then they can start talking about it. Even if we come right out and say that it's not allowable. I don't want to talk about it. If we don't
Right.
talk about it, then it's not allowable without any
So
further.
stop talking about it.
Good. Thank you very much. Need a
Not a
positive.
problem. Use variances, I don't like them. Anybody else like them?
No, it's a pain in the ass.
I know. Guys, can we say that? Can we say that use variances, we all agree that it does us no service? We've only granted one that I know of. I think there was one other granted, and and I don't even know which one it was, but anybody that I've heard talk about the other use variance that was granted, the board never should have done it. So the general feeling that I continue to get from anybody that knows about the use variance is either when we have it, they don't want it, or when we don't have it, they want it. So,
Yeah, because we took it out, what, 30 years ago?
right. And then it got put back in like
20 years
2000.
ago, they put it back in.
Was
Yeah.
it 20? Was it that early? It was early in the 2000s?
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
it's been
15
enough time.
years later.
It's been enough time. Let's take it out again.
Yeah.
And in 20 years, if the board is starting to talk about it, and didn't we have a use variance or something like that? Gally, you'll be chairman at that point. All right, so I say, yeah, and if everybody's okay with it, I know without even talking to Greg, I know he'd be okay with it. All
Definitely.
right, so
I
anybody else?
certainly am.
Mr. Galley?
Yeah, I was just reading the definition.
Okay, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
It's
like you
worth-
said, one. So okay, I'm not against removing it.
It's virtually impossible to prove. That's the problem. All right. It's virtually impossible for any applicant to prove that they are worthy of a use variance. I don't really even like the use variance that we granted for the car dealership.
And it's harder to measure. At least with the dimensional variance, it's feet and inches.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
All right. So Deb, you can put that on the thing that everybody's in favor of getting rid of it. Mr. Baker Senior, anything else?
No,
Mr. Baker Jr., what you got?
Nothing, sir.
Gotcha. The only thing that I really am looking at this point is I'd like to see something. If you guys look at, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. If you were to go to not the permitted uses, building and lot regulations. All right. When it comes to the residential districts, I've never really understood what the differential is between R2 and R3. Because R3 doesn't say you can have a 3-family. Right? I always typically when I look at these things in other towns, an R1, single family, R2, 2-family, R3, 3-family, R4, multi-family. All right. The way that this reads is that in an R1 zone, the minimum lot area required is 32,670 square feet. The maximum number of dwelling units is 32 the maximum number of dwelling units per 32,670 square feet is 1. So for every 32,670 square feet, you can only have 1. But that's the definition of a single family zone anyway. So it's like that's weird. I don't understand why that is. Why you have to designate that you can only have 1 for every 32,670 square feet. So I look at 2, All right, it says maximum number of dwelling units per 32,670 square feet. It says one, which means that in an R2, if you have the 64,000, whatever it is, you can have a two-family. That's a problem. Because if you look at all the R2 zone in town, they're all under 32,670 square feet from the inception. Yet they were classified as two families. That number has gone up and up and up. And Deb, we looked at this a
Mhm.
while ago, right?
Yep.
It was, I don't remember what the number was originally, but I know it was like something like 12,000 square feet. It was something stupid, right? It was like
Yes,
it was a very, very small number. And that's where a lot of these lots are.
it was
So
14, Rob.
14,000.
Yeah.
So
Then it was
back-
amended to 21, and it went to 32
yeah.
when I
See,
was on the plan.
that's one of the problems that this town has, is that the number of illegal apartments in this town are really hurting us. So if we found a way to make some of these R2s, some of these R3s, some of these R4s, if there was a way numeric that we could help these owners become compliant, but still have the number of parking spaces required, or an approved number of parking spaces that we all feel is okay. Because let's just say that I want to go to, what was that R2 that came to us that the hell was it? Bob, you Mr. Baker, you were the one that pointed out that I said the parking was in that side road, and you said that it was just repaved. How was it? It was
Center, isn't it?
what, say again, Deb?
Is it Center Ave?
Center Ave was the one with the illegal apartment in the shed.
Right.
There was
Right.
another one where they
Um,
turned it into a two-family because the daughter was special needs. And there was a garage out in the back, and there was a question as to what was going on actually in the garage, this, that, the other thing. They were an R2 zone. They didn't have the square footage. They had the parking to be able to make it happen, but the only thing that they were missing was the square footage. They needed the dimensional variance on the square footage. We've never given that before, and precedent, and because of precedent, we've never given that before. If we knocked down if we knocked down the area requirement, we could have done. You know, I'm not saying create precedent. I'm never going to say create precedent. But in this case, if there was a way that we can modify the bylaw to bring it down, you know, instead of being for an R2, you can say that the minimum square footage for the lot is 32,670 square feet. But number of dwelling units per 32,670 square feet. Instead of one, make that two. So you could have a two-family.
you could put a duplex on that lot.
You can put a duplex, or you can have a duplex, or you can, well, see, a
We could
duplex.
say with the duplex, you need 4 parking spaces.
See, that's my point. And maybe there's a way that we can make that. I think that there's a way that we can make this work, alleviate some of the situation, but
Right.
still make it work. So my personal thought was start at the table and look at R1, you know, the R1 zone. The only thing that's allowed, the only thing that's allowable on the R1 zone is
Single family.
home. That's it. So you don't even
Right.
have to put how many numbers of dwelling units per 32,670 square feet. You know, just right in the R1, it says single family, so that could be not applicable. When it comes to R2, R3, R4, the number of dwelling units per 32,670 square feet would be 2, 3, and 4, as long as they meet the the parking requirements.
Parking and dimensional.
Well, parking and you gotta remember, most of these houses that I'm thinking about are
Going up.
pre-existing.
Right.
No, they're pre-existing, all right? So if they're pre-existing, they're not necessarily gonna be touching the offsets. You know, they're not gonna
Right.
be modifying that, they're not gonna be modifying the initial footprint of anything. Could they go up to make that happen? Yep, they could go up to make that happen, but we also have a height, we have a height thing that's already in the bylaw, so you can't go any higher than 36 feet anyway. So what that does is on an R4,
Right.
all right, on an R4, you need, the minimum lot size is 32,670 square feet. But the number, again, it says maximum number of dwelling units per 32,670 square feet. I say 4. You know, because here's the other thing. We also have, who is it? Deb helping, Salem Street,
Yeah,
that guy that came in and he had how many? He had 5, right?
he had 5, he wanted 8.
He wanted 8. Belmont Street, he had 5. And wanted like 62, wasn't it? Something, it was just an obnoxious number. So we've got several houses in town that are all types of pre-existing non-conforming. I don't know if this helps or not. You know, I don't know if this helps or it hurts. My big thing is the R2, you know, because a lot of the R2, that's where all your problems are with the illegal apartments. So
The question,
please.
so if in an R4 district, if someone had 32,670,
Mhm.
they could put 4 units there?
They can put 4 units in the same building as
Right.
long as they meet the parking requirements.
But the bylaw now is how many square feet? need.
Is number of dwelling units per 32,670 square feet. It already says 4, so that's actually not, that doesn't need a change. So the R4 doesn't need a change. It would really be the R2 and the R3. Because quite honestly, in the R4, hold on. Let me just get back to the actual numbers here. In the R4 district. Single family, 2-family, multi-family. So you, maybe for the R4, because it already says multifamily, it doesn't say, it doesn't say, you know, apparently multifamily can mean 3-family, can mean 4-family, it's anything above 2. So it's saying that you can only have 4 units and 32,670 square feet. But
And
if
how
we
come
turn
in the
down-
R2, you gotta have 64, almost 65,000?
Right. Right,
But in
that's why I think
R3
that
But in the R3, you only need 32?
32 to have 2. To have any more than 2. Yeah, to have any more than 2, you have to have another 32,670 square feet. So you have to have the 65,000 in an R3 to have more than 2 units. With 30, you know, you would to have more than 2 units, you would have to have the 65,000 square feet, and you could have 4. So it's just it gets confusing, and I
is
want to try and
confusing.
make that. I want to try and alleviate some of the problems. And believe me, I'm not advocating for anything at this point. I'm just advocating that we need to look at this because the number of illegal units in this town is nuts. I'm not saying it's any different than any other town, but it's just in this town alone, it's difficult. It's difficult to stomach. We hear about it all the time. People are always coming to us. They're in an R2 zone, but they can't have a two-family because of the current lot area. What was the other thing? I talked to Galvin on this. You can't go back to the grandfathering. You can't go back to, you know, the required zoning when it was, you know, when it was built. Sometimes you can, but I guess in this situation you can't. I don't know. All I know is that I want to try to help alleviate the situation. And it seems like the only way to do it is one of the only ways to do it is to modify that required area per unit to make it work. But I don't know. Any ideas?
We get Tom's feeling on it.
I haven't
But
talked to him about it yet, but I probably should. Yeah, that should be something. I don't think he's gonna have a problem with it. You know, it's I look at
Well, it'll save him a lot of headache too.
of course it will. Of
Going
course
out
it will.
issuing cease
I
and
just-
desist and everything else.
From a R2, the R2 is the turquoise. From an R2 standpoint, just an R2 standpoint, you're looking at if I had to put a percentage on it, 75% of the town knocking Union Point out. I'm not talking about Union Point, but let's say 70% of the town is R1. No, less than that. No, I'm going to say I'll say at least 50%. 50% of the town is R1. Another 30% is R2. The R3 is a very low number. It might be like a 50, 70, it might be like 10% of the town. And then the R4 is very, very little. There's not that much R4 out there. But I look at everything on North Ave, Belmont Street, Pacific Street, Reed Street, everything on Upper and Lower Reed Street, Sunset, Cary, where are we? Everything along North Ave. Out in, let's see, everything behind, let's see, Dyer Street, North Douglas, Rice Ave. These are all R2 zones. These are all R2 zones. They're really tiny properties. There's all kinds of stuff out by half of that much of East Water Street. Everything past Liberty, almost everything past Liberty Street, almost everything past Sunnybank Ave on East Water Street. That's R2. All right, that's an R2 zone. Beale Street, that Beale Court, that Sawmill Lane and Cornmill Lane. That's all R2.
Right, but they're single families. Oh, there's a
Those are all-
mixture.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Those are all single
They're
families.
mixed.
But the whole point is, and actually those last two, that was a 40B.
Right.
So I don't even want to talk about those. But there's so many places in town that it might actually alleviate some issues and generate tax. Because I talked to the sad that I had to, but I talked to the assessor on this. A single family and a two family are assessed differently. So there's a higher tax rate on a two family, which there would also be a higher tax rate on a three family. So if these people did end up coming to us to make their places a legal two family, if they could do it via building code, and if they could do it while maintaining the parking, I think that the required square footage for the lot, that could be knocked down somehow. As long as everything can be safe, as long as everything could be safe. That's my biggest concern at this point, is trying to make that.
I'd rather see that, Rob, than start issuing dimensional variances for these lots.
Right, I never want
But then
that.
we're gonna be setting a precedent.
Yeah, forget that. I don't want that happening. Again, I'm not looking for definitive answers. What do you guys think? Does that sound like something that could work?
Yes.
Don't all answer at once.
Yeah, no, it's certainly worth looking into it.
Yeah, that's really all I wanted to bring up was the fact that we
Yep.
have a lot of illegal apartments, and it would be nice to try to help alleviate the situation by not bending the rules, changing the rules. I don't want to bend the rules. I mean, I know they come to us that's why they come to us, to bend the rules. I don't want to bend the rules. I want to change the rules to make it a little easier.
Improve the rules to benefit the town.
Really it. That's really it. So if you guys are okay with that, I'm gonna start talking to Tom Rubel, see what his ideas are. You guys know that I brought it out. Maybe you guys start thinking about it, and if something comes to your mind, just jot it down, email me. And this is a big one, so it's not going to go. It's not going to any town meeting anytime soon. And I don't think any of what we're really talking about is going to be going to a town meeting anytime soon. We need
Can't put
time
the
to-
use, the variance.
Say again.
use variance in? We won't get the use variance in?
Oh, I doubt it. Allison's gonna, Deb would have to kind of put this together. Allison would have to go through it and kind of structure it. Bob would have to look at it, Bob Galvin would have to look at it and put it in legalese.
Mhm.
We would have to look at it another time to make sure that we were cool with it. Then it's gotta go to planning. Planning's gotta look at it. They need time to review it, bring it to a meeting, make sure that they're cool with it. And this all has to be in time for town meeting.
Next week.
So I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
No.
I don't think that's gonna happen. Deb, what do you think? Do you think you can make all that happen?
Negative.
But that's the gist of it. It all has to be done, together. Saying it's
Oh, we want to do it right. We don't want to.
no, it has to be. We have to play by the rules the whole way. I mean, I'm sure there's ways we can approach shit, but I don't want to do that. This has to be done appropriately. So it really comes down to, if we start thinking about it now, we start putting it all together now. We can, Deb really doesn't have a lot to do during the day, so I mean, she can get this done, a couple days. That's fine.
No problem, yeah.
Allison has absolutely nothing to do, ever. So that she can probably get it done like in a week or so, not a big deal. Galvin, who always returns phone calls, isn't gonna have it done in like a week or two. So you hear where I'm going. It's just it's not gonna be an easy process. So if we start looking at this, if we really start looking at this after town meeting, I think that gives us enough time to really start putting things together. We pick, and again,
Right.
if we're not even gonna get the hold on, we're not even gonna get the change to the marijuana bylaw in this year, because apparently there's a whole bunch of stuff that's gonna end up having to change, because the state changed a whole bunch of stuff and not just that one thing. So that whole bylaw is gonna have to get reevaluated. And that's on Allison's plate to put that together, but she's got no time to talk about it right now. So
But
I
there's
think
a,
it'll give us time too during the year before the end of this year to,
Mhm.
if something else comes up and we want to change it.
exactly. So Deb, you were gonna say something?
so there's a possibility that if there's like a special meeting in the fall,
Yeah,
something could be proposed for that.
yeah. I'd like to think that there usually is. There
Mhm.
usually is a special town meeting, so I'd like to kind of plan for that.
Special town meetings are for emergencies supposedly.
Yeah.
That's,
Zoning's an emergency. So honestly, what I'd like to do is I'd like to plan for that think that there is going to be an emergency town meeting, and maybe we start thinking about that. Because if it isn't, then we've got it kind of settled and ready for the 2025 meeting.
Mhm.
Does that work for everybody?
It does.
Yeah. Okay, if nobody's got anything else to talk about, Deb, you want to talk about anything?
So there's no meeting March 3rd, I think it is.
Okay.
Because there's, I think, an election.
March.
Trying to pull
No,
up
it would be March 5th.
March 5th, right. So there's no
Okay.
meeting March 5th.
Are we doing one on the 12th or the 19th?
We'll have one on the 19th.
Do we know who's there or?
So far, we have French Road. They were supposed to revise their application,
That's right.
and I haven't heard from them in a couple of weeks. So I'm gonna reach out to them.
Okay, what else we
I
got?
didn't, that's it. At this point, that's it, but there's quite a few I have that are pending.
What was going on with? Did we make it, did we? Does anybody
Plain
remember what
Street.
happened with Plain Street? Yeah,
No,
they were gonna, they were supposed
they
to.
were supposed to get documents
Yeah, didn't we?
verifying that the home had been lived in for over a year.
Oh, no, they actually were able to pull a building permit.
Right, so, but we have
So
they have a thing to us, we were supposed to,
it was withdrawn. They withdrew their application.
yeah, but don't they have to cut, I mean, we still have a continuance up.
Right, they got asked to withdraw.
Yeah, they have to ask to withdraw at the continuance hearing, because we can't leave a continuance,
Even though they've withdrawn
doesn't matter.
prior to the continuance.
Yeah, we set a continuance date, we set a continuance date, date and time certain.
Okay,
Again, talk to Galvin just to make certain, but as far as I know, we still have to have a meeting on it because it's, even though they withdrew,
to accept it.
yeah,
Okay.
we still have to make a decision on it.
Right, there's an open decision.
Yeah, so there might even be a time statute thing that we have to look at now.
Okay,
Again, we know that they withdrew. We know that they've done that. It's just a matter of, don't we have to make a decision somehow, some way,
Okay.
or through the
Okay.
public hearing, process.
okay.
That's a thing.
How'd they get the building permit?
Oh, from what I heard, their attorney was able to prove that, I guess, and Deb, you'll know this better than I will. Apparently the attorney was able to prove that storage of belongings constitutes
You mean
occupation.
voting? Yeah,
So supposedly both the mother and the son, who were living in different apartments, were occupying each apartment separately with their stuff.
They didn't have to technically be sleeping there every night.
Yeah, so that's basically what it came down to. Their attorney proved that this is what their attorney had to say. I'm assuming Mr. Rubel discussed this with Attorney Galvin, and I'm assuming that because there's the whole talk of withdrawal and this, that, the other thing, regardless if it was done right or not, Tom was okay with it. So if Tom was okay with it, then Tom was okay with it.
Okay, I'll reach out to Galvin on that.
Okay. What else we got? Anything?
No, yes, so we continued the hearing for Howard Street until until March 5th. Can't meet.
Okay.
So, and I haven't heard from them.
Okay.
So what do we do? Do we continue it? I remember that happened once before. We had a hearing scheduled for an election and we had to continue it, but I can't remember. what it was to look back through the paperwork.
Wouldn't we have to request them to give us an extension?
We're
Yeah,
gonna
but
have
we'd
to
still
have
have
them
to-
agree.
Yeah,
But-
we'd still have to have a meeting, wouldn't we? Because again, it was a date and time certain.
Right,
So I think the only thing that we can do, I mean, we can't we can't vote on. I think what happens is we can't vote on the matter, but we can vote to continue the hearing.
you can't even meet.
Can't even meet?
If it's not on the agenda, we can't do anything.
But the agenda hasn't been written. So you're saying, I don't remember this. We can't even meet
Correct,
Why can't we?
because
of
there's
the
an
election.
election.
Right, but is that a legal prohibition or a procedural or a convenience thing?
I believe it's illegal. And it's specific to zoning board.
Well, because
I thought it had something to do with making the final decision on things.
Why don't I call Galvin tomorrow?
Yeah, just to double check. I was pretty sure that it only had to do with, like closing out the public portion of the meeting and making decisions. If it's something to continue based on the fact.
What does that got to do with the elections? I was meeting.
It's a state law type thing. We've had to do it, we've had to deal with this before, because the other way to do it, I think, is you have a meeting prior to that and you deal with it. If we put it on the agenda to deal with the continuance. Because of the election. I think that's what we ended up doing. I'm not positive, but I think that's what we ended up doing. We put it on the, whatchamacallit, we put it on like the week prior to deal
So
with
it should have
it.
been on tonight is what you're saying.
So it should have been on tonight, what we're saying. Yeah, tonight's the 20th, yeah, or you don't need the 2 weeks for advertising. You don't need the 2 weeks for advertising when it's a continuance, correct?
Well, it wouldn't be a regularly scheduled hearing.
Okay. Okay. And for a continuance,
Rob, it
You don't-
does say on the posted agenda, other items not reasonably anticipated or listed may be brought up for discussion to extent allowed by the law.
But it's discussion. It's not, tonight's not a hearing, it's a meeting.
yeah, it's not a hearing, it's only a meeting. It's only a meeting, and it would have to been
I'm
advertised.
just trying to, find a way we could just do it tonight and
Of course,
That's a-
unfortunately, I don't think there's a way we can. But
we'd have to do the meeting before the 6th, right?
have to do it before the 5th.
5th.
And again, if we did it for the 27th. And only put that on. And just continued it and be out of here, that's 10 minutes. I think my record for opening and then closing and opening and closing was
8
like
minutes.
3 minutes. It was 8
8
minutes.
minutes.
8
Yes.
minutes. I bet you if
Oh, no.
push-
You were 3 minutes. the
three.
selectmen were
And it
8.
was 3
Yeah,
minutes.
see, that was 3 minutes. I'll bet you if I push it, I can get this down to
A minute.
2.5. No, I say 2.5. I'll go 2.5 this time.
I'm gonna call Galvin tomorrow.
Just to double check it.
Yep.
If it really came down to it, like I said. 20 minutes tops of everybody's time on the 27th. If we can bang that out. Just to correct the situation, that would be
Okay.
helpful. I know Steve's already looking at me over his glasses, so I know he's not happy.
I just want you to practice your speed reading on that agenda.
That I'm not worried about. I can make that work.
That's what the secretary's for.
No. Oh yeah, actually, that's what the clerk's for, and that's technically what Steve is. But I read all the advertisements, stuff like that. I will burn through that. Like I said, my record is 3 minutes. I'm gonna make this 2.5. If
Okay.
that's the case, if that's what we have to do. If there's a way around it, then there's a way around it. If there's no other way around it, then we're gonna have to do something like that. And technically, I think all we need is
3 members.
3 members. That's all we need is 3 members. We need a quorum. That's it. So
Okay.
if that works, then we're all good. Deb's gonna figure that out. Is there anything else? I'm hungry. I want to go home.
Motion adjourned.
I got a
Second.
motion. I got a second. Roll call, Mr. Baker Senior.
Yes.
Myself is a yes. Mr. Galley,
Yes.
Mr. Baker Jr.
Yes.
Get the hell out of here, people. Thank you for
Good night,
dealing with us.
everyone.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good night.